you've got the true Olympic spirit.
Voices from Other Lands. Voices from Other Lands.
Shaping ideas into stories. This is Voices from Other Lands. I'm Yunfeng in Beijing. Imagination is more important than knowledge. This is part of a quote from Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists in history. In order to nurture and develop our imagination, many argue and believe the music of thinkers such as Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, Schubert, and Schumann, as well as many others, is the natural medium for developing the minds of young people from the earliest years through their late teens and 20s. Lynn Yan is definitely one of the strong believers. As the founder and executive director of the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture, Lynn Yan and her partner's mission is to revive the study and practice of the classical principle in music and science, especially among the young. In the past 3 years, they utilized concerts, lectures, and co-participatory performance to return music to its proper province as a practice, not a spectator sport, involving hundreds of thousands in the United States. Lynn is bringing her ideas to China now. Voices from Other Lands found her and managed to have had a conversation on her mission to revive the classical culture before she left Beijing. Lynn Yan, welcome to Voices from Other Lands.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Lynn Yan. I'm the founder and executive director of the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture. Our foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization in America.
So actually, you are the founder and executive director, so you know everything about this foundation, sure, of course. But when we look at the name of it, Revival of a Classical Culture, because classical culture is not a common word that people talk about and use every day.
Well, it's not pop culture. So what is classical culture? Actually, it's a methodology. It's a principle. It's a classical principle of cultural practice that will allow the human mind, or that will engage every human individual and their minds in development that I think most often is very beneficial to the society, creates the potential in an individual for potentially great discoveries in sciences and other areas.
Is opera classical culture?
Well, Western classical opera certainly is part of it, or works by great classical masters. But it's not just looking backwards. I'm saying that it also looks forward. That which is the most classical in the past is actually extremely applicable to the needs of our future.
So you started the foundation 3 years ago. Why did you start the foundation?
Because there's a real need, I believe, in the United States, for example, for deeper thinking on part of every common citizen. You know, we've had many financial crashes now, and often there's blames being given to the government. I mean, they take blame on regulation, like take the crash of 2008, but also people too, right? Not far-sighted enough, too greedy or too non-thinking. So the root of it lies in the individual themselves, or what we can call the aesthetical education of the individual, to educate the soul, or to the inside of a person for compassion, for beauty. So it's this idea that it is through beauty that one proceeds to freedom, as in the mind being free to do all that it could be.
To me, when I'm thinking why the revival, because less people go to operas, that's the fact. Here, especially the younger generation, they go to pop culture, they enjoy pop music, not the classical one. So is it also true in the United States?
It's actually quite severe a problem in the United States, which is that I believe that we're in a cultural dark age. And we're not just entering into one, we are in one. Look at the movies that people watched, the violence. You look at the music that they listen to, all the sex and drugs and rock and roll, all the things that are on the surface, superficial material. But what about the inside of people? What about the part that make a person identify with their humanity? That the difference between a human being as a piece of meat versus human being as a living, thinking individual.
Then how does your foundation run?
We don't do grant giving. We actually organize programs and we organize symposiums. I mean, literally, we do the work ourselves. So, for example, we in the past 3 years organized a number of classical musical concerts, symposiums, conferences, including 2 major concerts at Carnegie Hall. I mean, in 2012, we had a Carnegie Hall concert that on a Mother's Day Sunday, which everybody told us was impossible to organize young people to participate in this class, to listen to really difficult to listen to classical music. We had about 1,700 young people and their parents and their teachers from over 70 different public schools being part of the audience. We've been organizing summer programs. We did a 2014 summer music and science program, which involves students from 15 different public schools. We've been organizing in-school, after-school choral programs because we strongly believe that making music in group is a activity that most effectively develops the minds of young people. As a matter of fact, there have been hundreds of neurological studies done in the last 30 years, 600 studies, peer-reviewed, scientific journal published papers that essentially, as one neurologist says, making music in group is the only activity that engages every single part of the human brain. That it is a most effective means for developing the minds of people, especially young people, to do all kinds of things and to developing all other areas of their studies and their rest of their lives. This is why I say that classical culture as a way in which to develop an individual for the potential to become great masters in discovering the great new principles, discoveries that would benefit humankind.
Well, how did these young people like your concert? How did you encourage them to come, actually, in the first place?
Oh, that was a funny story, actually. So when we started this foundation in 2011, what I actually did was I got somebody to donate a few $1,000s for tickets to to an all Mozart concert that was being performed by somebody that I know to be really quite excellent. And then I started calling up the public schools to see what students would be interested, because everybody in America says today young people have no interest in classical music, in classical culture, and literature and of that sort, and music of that sort. So anyways, one school that I called up, Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy High School, the assistant principal said to me, Jay-Z the rapper, Jay-Z maybe, but no way Mozart. I mean, literally, he said that. And I said, well, why don't you just ask the kids? And he said, oh, okay, fine. 2-3 weeks later, he called me, he said, I think I have a few kids for you. And I replied, great, thank you. And then he called me back a few more days after that, and he said, how many tickets do you have? Because, I now have a boatload of kids who wants to come. So this is
what happened.
People are curious, interested. Young people but this is they've not been given access actually today to the I would say the greatest cultural accomplishments and achievements of human society, civilization, and I think that's a real pity. So when I say the 1,700 young people and parents and teachers who came to our Carnegie Hall concert, they all came voluntarily on their own.
So we did assume that they are not into the...
Yes, there were many erroneous presumptions on parts of experts and others. It's not always easy, for example, to organize young people to participate on a regular basis in chorus or in orchestra. I mean, we found that a lot of family issues or scheduling problems resides, but there are plenty of interest. I mean, one third to half of students in our summer music and science program last year, which is this idea that there exists a pre-existing, pre-established relationship between music and science, unity between music and science. So all the students were required in the morning to participate in chorus, and there was a specific point that the chorus focus is on polyphony, because that is something that's uniquely elevating to the mind. And it's scientific as well, this whole idea, how the universe is polyphonic. right? All the planets revolving around the sun, in harmonic motion and harmony, and this goes down to the very minute as well. Anyways, one third of these kids had no musical experience, didn't know anything about singing, and they were able to, in a mere 3 weeks, to actually do a very simple concert, and because they had interest. And I think the interest is just there. You just have to develop it. You just have to encourage it.
Running it must be a very difficult part because, first of all, how many people are working for you?
I have all volunteers.
All volunteers?
I'm the only full-time person there.
So fundraising is not a problem?
Fundraising is always a challenge. All of our donation comes from individuals who are persuaded or already believe that this is something that ought to be done, that this is needed for society. And of course, nothing worth doing is easy. So
You're listening to Voices from Other Lands. Prior to her full-time dedication to the revival of classical culture, Lynn Yan studied business and worked in the financing sector in the United States. The U.S. financial crisis made her realize what she had been working and achieved were not fulfilling and rewarding to her. She eventually decided to act in order to realize her love for and ability to contribute to a higher calling. In 2010, she began the groundwork for what led to the formation of the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture. After 3 years running the organization, she decided to do more and to build a cross-ocean bridge between China and the United States. Why are you here in China now?
Well, because culture, as I said, the highest development of human culture doesn't belong just to the West, it belongs to the East. China have a very rich classical culture, and I believe that real diplomacy can be achieved, actually, that through the cultural exchanges on the highest cultural level, especially when you involve young people. I am a strong believer in the universal nature of classical culture that is identifiable and could be understood and incorporated by everybody. So I believe Confucianism is truly a great part of classical culture, Mencius, and the whole arena of classical musical development. I believe that is also universal and has no country boundary. We are hoping to have a cooperation and on perhaps some demonstration, symposium, conference, even concerts later in the year. Yes.
Lynn, well, starting from the very beginning and 3 years has passed and thinking about trying to recall, is it rewarding to you?
Oh, very, very rewarding. I used to work in finance. Anyways, I left finance because this is something that I truly believe is necessary for the survival of mankind. I really admire President Xi for the initiatives that he's taken recently on culture, and of course China in the last 30 years, the economic and cultural and scientific development, and actually China's classical or appreciation, absorption of Western classical culture as well is truly impressive.
You just now said you like financing, but why you're now doing more like a charity work?
No. I said that I moved. What I mean is that I used to do finance, and now I do something that is not for profit.
So why did you change?
Because I believe that this is something that is necessary and it is something that is worth doing. It's a truly worthy thing.
Sure, we totally can understand it's a rewarding thing, but first place, why people change is because maybe people don't like what they do, so they change. If you like what you do, well, there must be something. I
found that what I do in finance to not have the benefit, long-term benefit, that my present work actually has. I mean, I told you about the financial crash of 2008, where I experienced a truly awesome, revelation during the course of all the year or two of turmoil. And I came into the realization that money cannot define value. that if a society's only definition of value is through money, then it will fall ultimately, and history has proven that to be the case always. So, and I believe that somebody must do something to restore the value, the true human value in society, and I found America to be truly in need of that, and that's why I started doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, sure.
Between family and career, they choose dreams. Between work and art, they choose passion. Between the divine and nature, they choose devotion. Between life and death, they choose love. For a journey of life, for an inspiration of soul. This is Voices from Other Lands.
Did your family and friends support you in the first place?
Yes. My mother is quite supportive. My family is quite supportive.
Can you make a living out of it?
Probably not. I mean, the purpose is not to make a living.
Then you have to learn to make the program sustainable. Then.
Oh yes, definitely. We are definitely working to make the program sustainable. But if I were to think about this only from the standpoint of am I going to make money from it, I think I've already failed.
Really, so far from what I can see, you're on your own and you're using volunteers, and you have been running for 3 years. It's an achievement. But in the future, do you have your plan to really enlarge and make this program, be known to many more?
Yes, this time in China, I've found many potential partners for cooperation. Actually, for this organization to be as little of employment based as possible, because it's the idea of volunteerism. It's the idea of Benjamin Franklin's idea that to do good. It's the original American idea of doing good for the sake of goodness, and nothing else. See, that's a really important idea for individuals in the society to have. If you don't have that selfless ideal want, then all society falls apart if you only think about yourself.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, of course we have teachers that we pay. We have people, we have music teachers that we pay, and we various other things. But I'm saying that as far as administration is concerned, I intend to make it always very lean.
Well, here in China, many people, if you say you're working in financing, a lot of young people, just envy you because they know it makes a lot of money. And here in China, young people, becoming more and more, sorry to say that, materialistic. If you would like to encourage them to join you, what would you say?
Well, to encourage young people here to join me?
Yes.
That learning for its own sake is beauty, and that there's more joy in the doing of good than in the making of money. Doing of necessary and good things. It's actually something that Franklin Delano Roosevelt said in his inaugural speech.
Well, then tell us more of your own story to convince them, what you have experienced. What's your education? How did you come up with the idea? Tell us more about details that people will understand you.
Well, I started studying piano when I was 7, and calligraphy too. I went to school for finance. I went to college I studied finance, and I came out and I worked in finance. But
how many years?
10 years.
That long?
Yep. And then I left. I left because
Is it very hard? 10 years you have already, you know everything about the financing. It's very easy to live the life. Just live it. Yeah,
no.
Tell us, to convince.
What I'm saying is that I'm always thinking about fundraising. I'm always thinking of what we have to do to make up sometimes gaps in the fundraising. There's no easy way of doing what we did. I mean, when we did the 2012 Carnegie Hall concert, I personally must have spoken to 300-400 public schools on the phone. I mean, this is no easy work, but the satisfaction, the joy at the end of having accomplished something that is truly, people say impossible, but it's not just that. To have done something that really just for goodness, for the sake of good, that to see the face of people as they're listening to the music, when they realize our mission, which is to reintroduce this classical principle back into society, when they actually experience it, it really there's no comparison.
Okay.
There's really no comparison.
Sure, you convinced me in a way. But if I want to be the volunteer, how could I, enroll? What kind of a recruitment standards for you?
Recruitment standard is just simply a willingness to work and help out, and willingness to learn, open mind.
How do people reach you then?
We have a website. It's the name of our foundation, .org, Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture.org.
So right now your program is mainly based in the United States.
The program is based in the United States, and as I said, we're working on China-U.S. cross-cultural programs, and I hope to come back here or present something here in China in September, for example. We've been, for example, doing a lot of work around the proper tuning of musical performances in classical music. Today's standard is a A440 in all concert halls, A442, and that is actually not accurate. And so you have to have the principled approach is A comparable to middle C of 256 hertz per second, and it's a scientific standard. So anything we do, and especially in classical culture and cultural practices, it has to be principled. So we're hoping to have a symposium here and demonstration here. I mean, I want young people in America, a group of young people that we help develop who can learn Chinese and learn the greatest classical cultural works of China. And I hope that together these young people will be able to work their way through the greatest works of East and West, like works of Plato, of Johannes Kepler, of Bach and Beethoven, of Bernard Riemann, the great mathematician, and Friedrich Schiller.
So if I let you choose one piece of music as the ending of this show, which piece would you choose?
Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Ode to Joy. See, because it's about the brotherhood of man. This idea that we are all people. Actually, I don't even have to say anything. See, the music says all.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you.
With this piece of classical music by London Symphony Orchestra, we end this edition of Voices from Other Lands. And that was me, Yunfeng, talking to Lynn J. Yan, the founder and executive director of the Foundation for the Revival of Classical Culture. To listen to more from those who are visiting, working, or staying in China, log on to newsplusradio.cn. Until next week, have a good one. You have been listening to the online edition of Voices from Other Lands with News Plus Radio.